So, welcome everybody to the Design Systems Week 2025. This is the 5th edition of the Design Systems Week, and this will be the first session of this year. NL Design System is a community of government professionals who collaborate on reusable and accessible and user-friendly websites and digital services. We collaborate to gather the best and most user-friendly components, guidelines, and templates, etc. And you're welcome to join us on nldesignsystem.nl, so please don't hesitate. We will be recording this session, and there will be a Q&A afterwards. So if you have any questions for the speaker, please raise your hand at the end of the session or post your questions in the chat. The first session will be by Manuel Matuzović. He is a front-end developer, a consultant, accessibility auditor, and of course, well, I hear all my colleagues about it, author of the Web Accessibility Cookbook. Please welcome Manuel. The first thing to do is unmute yourself.
Okay, thanks a lot, and thanks a lot for inviting me to speak here. It's a great pleasure and honor. It was only last week or a bit more than a week that you invited me, so a bit on short notice. This is also the reason why I don't have any slides, any beautiful design slides. I just have myself and my voice and my face in a browser and a code editor, and that's what I will show you, but it should be fine. The reason why I'm here today is that I'm going to speak about the pattern library or design system of the City of Vienna. Before I do that, let me just quickly introduce myself. As Robert already said, I'm a front-end developer and a consultant. These days, I do more consulting than developing. I'm specialized in web accessibility. This is also why I wrote the Web Accessibility Cookbook. And I usually do audits and workshops with companies. But I used to work for the City of Vienna full-time. I'm still working with them as a consultant and also as a developer, but now I'm freelancer. But I used to work for them full-time. And when I joined, I think it was almost 7 years ago, they were in the middle of a relaunch. And they already had a content management system ready, not ready, but they already had they picked one and they started working on it. And they also already had designs for the front ends, but they haven't written the front end yet. And when I joined, I was lucky because I was able to contribute to picking the right stack for the front end. And the nice thing was that my boss at the time and also my colleague and I, we share very similar beliefs. We believe that websites should be fast and accessible and as usable as possible, which kind of sounds like a no-brainer. But if you look at the state of the web, you will, not every website believes that, or the people behind every website. But we said, okay, we want a fast website, we want an accessible website, and how can we do that? And we decided that the thing that will help with that is to reduce or to keep the number of dependencies low. So we wanted to avoid having too many external plugins and frameworks and libraries and so on in our pattern library. And eventually we went for vanilla HTML, vanilla CSS, and vanilla JavaScript. We were considering using Sass or less maybe, but there isn't much that Sass does for me anymore. The only thing missing for me is really mixins, but other than that, I'm absolutely fine with vanilla CSS. And yeah, HTML, of course, but we decided not to go for a specific library or framework like React or Vue or anything, because we said that, frameworks come and go, but standards are forever. Once something is standardized, it will stay forever. So we said, no, we're just going with HTML and CSS. And also, we made the decisions because we are working with a PHP-based content management system, but someone else may be working with React. And maybe next week they pick another framework, and we don't know which it's going to be. And if we decide to go for a specific one, others might have a harder time working with our thing. Yeah. So that was the situation, and eventually we built it, and we were very happy with it because the bundle size of the CSS and the JavaScript was minimal, like super low. It was just really fast. It was accessible. We were very happy with it, and we already used it in our content management system, which of course didn't launch for 6 years or so. It only launched like four weeks ago because it's the public sector. Stuff takes forever. It's not possible to ship something in 6 months. We need 6 years. But we also used it in microsites, and we were really happy with what we have built. But then one day we had a meeting with another team that works with React, and they said, we saw your library and we want to use it, but we can't use it the way it is built. And we're like, why? It's standard HTML and standard CSS. If there's one thing that you can use anywhere, it's the standard stuff. They said, yes, that's true, but for every component that you build, we would have to build another component, a React component, a wrapper component, so that it's reusable. And this is a lot of work. And we said, yes, we know that. It was a deliberate decision because you are using React, there's another team using Angular, and maybe tomorrow you decide to use Vue, and we can't build all that and maintain that. And he said, yes, that's fine. But the thing is, it's a lot of work to build that stuff. And also at some point, the different variations of the library will get out of sync. Because when we make changes, they would have to track those changes and then make the changes in time in their components. And that would probably be, pretty hard to do, or maybe even impossible. And we were like, okay, yeah, we understand that, but yeah, we're not going to write React components. And what happened then is that another team did what we suggested, and they built their own thing, but they were using a component library that took our stuff and put it on top, and then they built something that, let's say, we weren't too happy about. And so we had again another meeting, and we tried to find a solution because the adoption rate was lower than we expected or that we wanted. We want people to use just one thing. We want one source of truth that everyone can use and that everyone enjoys using. So now we try to factor in not just the user experience. We didn't just want to make it fast and accessible, but also we talked about a bit more about the developer experience. So how can the developers work efficiently with our thing? And it went back and forth. And then one of the developers said, why aren't you using web component? And I said, I don't know. I have no idea when we're not using them, but I kind of knew because like 6 years ago, when I heard something about web components, it was usually not very positive. I don't want to use the term negative, but it wasn't really positive. It was something like web components are great, but there are so many bugs. Web components are great, but browser support. Web components are great, but library support. So I never really considered it. It wasn't really on my radar. And in this meeting, I said, you know what? Let me just give me a couple of days. I will check it out. I will learn what web components are. I will write some of them and see if this is the way to go. And as it turns out, it's the smartest thing that we did because what web components do, they allow us to write something that's really reusable and interoperable. I'm glad I managed to say this word. It's so tough for me to say that word. Web components are a group of different APIs that you can use to build your own HTML element. So in HTML, you basically have, H1 and P and LI and image and so on. You have 114 tags. And with web components, you can write your own elements. You can come up with a custom element that comes with its own CSS and JavaScript and functionality and design and so on. And the nice thing is it's a standard, so we can still use it in our PHP-based content management system, but libraries like React, for example, can use it too. Yeah, so we rewrote the entire thing in web components, and that the React people were happy and we were happy, and everything is perfect. While we were doing that, we also thought about how we are going to document it, because we're not the only ones working with the components. There are other teams, and of course we have to document all the different methods and custom properties and events and so on. And I'm an HTML CSS person. I don't have a lot of experience working with component libraries, so I didn't really know how people were doing that. And I did some research, and I will quickly share my screen now. And you should see my browser. Yes? Yeah, okay.
Yes, works.
And one of the things that I found was this initiative or this community called Open Web Components. And the idea behind Open Web Components is that you have a group of people who are really enthusiastic about web components, who share guides and tools and libraries and just knowledge, because there are fans of web components and they just want to, share the knowledge and provide people with the right tools so they can work efficiently web components and basically, increase the adoption. That's the idea behind that. And I was just looking at some of the tools and libraries they were using, and maybe find some information how we can document our web components. Because the thing is, we wanted the documentation of the web components to be as close to the component file itself. We were considering something like having our component file, and then next to it we have, I don't know, a text file with all the documentation for the methods or something like that in the same folder. But the problem with that is that eventually you will forget about the documentation. You will forget to, change your documentation if a method changes or something like that. It's very close, but it's not as close as we wanted. And I looked through what they offer, and I found this, the Custom Elements Manifest, which now brings us to the core of this talk. And what the Custom Elements Manifest does is it basically creates a machine-readable version of your components. Now, you would think, okay, a component is machine readable because it runs in the browser. Yes, true, but it creates a machine readable version of your documentation and the different properties and methods and events and so on. And the reason why they built this is that someone who's working on VS Code needed a way to teach VS Code about web components. So they wanted to increase the developer experience. So when you write or work with a web component, they wanted something like auto-completion and documentation of the different components directly in VS Code. So they needed something that's machine readable. And this is how this entire thing started. And what the Custom Elements Manifest does, or the analyzer, this tool, is that it takes your components and it reads the comments in your component files and creates a JSON file with that information. So the answer or the solution to our question or problem is that we just comment our components and we add some special text, which I will show in a second. And then the Custom Elements Manifest analyzer takes that information and transforms it to JSON, which we then can use wherever we need it. The nice thing about JSON is that it's a universal format, and usually any application can work with JSON in some way. So VS Code can work with it, and we can also do something with it. So this is basically the idea. And I've prepared a sample component, a simple component for you, which I will show you now. And I will show you how the whole documentation part works and what this analyzer does with this component. So this is my super awesome component that I built. It's a button that says show, and when you click it, it shows content, and then it hides it again, and there's a background image, background color on the content. Super basic, but that's all we need for now. Let me just quickly switch to VS Code. You should see my editor now. And here's my component with some basic code. You see there is a private toggle function, there is a public open function, there is a property expanded, and there's also an event. And that's what I have. And if I want to document this now, all I do is add JSDoc and write the documentation for this component. And so I will do that. I will just write something now. So this is the description of my components. Ignore the typos if there are any. So Now we already have a description that the analyzer can use and then put into the JSON file. But usually we need more information. So for example, we could also give an example of how to use this component. So we can add some markup here and show the code, for example. Or we can also teach the analyzer about specifics of our component. So for example, if I just quickly show you the code for this, my component has two slots, a label slot and a content slot. And if I want to document that, there is this special, I'm not sure how it's called. I will just call it tag. I don't know if this is the right term for it. And I'll just say slots label, the label of the widgets. And then I have another slot, which is content, and then the content of the widget, whatever, you know, just some description of different parts of your component. Another thing you can do is, for example, you can also say there is a CSS property named, what's the name? It's named disclosure background. That's a great name. And then I say background color of the component. So you see, it's a mix of just writing text, and then you have these special tags where you can document specific things. There's also one for attributes, there's one for events, and so on. And what I do now is, if we switch back to the browser, you will see here it says how to, you can install it via npm, and then you just run npx cem analyze, and that's it. And then it will create a JSON file. And this is what I'm doing now. I will just run this. And now it tells me I've created a new manifest. And what it gives me is this JSON file. And now we see there's a bunch of stuff in there. But the important information for us is, it says the name is disclosure. That's the name that I've defined for my custom element. It shows me the description that I just wrote. You can see that it documents CSS properties. It gives me the property name and also a description for the property. And there are also two slots. This is, you know, the stuff that I wrote here. This is what it gives me. But it also logs my toggle method here, which is actually a private method, and I don't want to document that. So I need to add some more information here. And you know, you probably don't want to watch me typing, so we'll just copy and paste it here and walk you through the stuff that I added here. So in my toggle methods, I have documentation, but I also have this add internal tag, which makes it private. So this won't be in the JSON file. But on the other hand, this open message has a description, so, and it's also public, so I want this in my JSON. Here you can see how I've documented the event. And what else? Yeah, here's an example of how to use it. And I also have a link, a tag here for the documentation of the pattern. Now we'll run this again, and we now have much more information in here, and you can also see that the toggle method is gone because it's private, so it's not included in the custom elements file. And that's basically it. This is all you need. You just comment your components, which you should do anyways, and then you have these custom tags that you can use to add some more information or make the information more specific, and it gives you your JSON file with the documentation, and then you can do whatever you want. And what we did with it is two things. While we were working on the components, we were also at the same time working on the website for our design system. It's called Handbuch, which is a German word for handbook. You know, just our guidebook with all the informations that we need for our design system. Let me just quickly show you. It includes stuff about the colors we are using, for example. It includes the typography. It includes information how we use images, but we also have a lot of information about our content strategy, how we create domains, like how domains should look like. So not design in the literal sense, but also design of domains and of our content and how we work with data. It's all in German, but if you use a translation tool, it should be fine. So you should probably be able to read it. And this entire thing is built with Eleventy. Eleventy is a static site generator, and Eleventy is really great because it, again, what I said earlier, we want something that's fast and accessible, and Eleventy does just that. It creates the fastest thing you can imagine, which is HTML, and Eleventy takes input and creates output. And the way it works is you create a file. It can be an HTML file, Nunchucks, Liquid, or JavaScript, and I think they support even more. And I will just call this mypage.ngk, and I just write hello world. And what Eleventy does, it's running in the background, and what it gives me is an index HTML file which says hello world. So it takes Nunchucks and turns it into HTML. And the great thing about Eleventy is it supports data files. So basically something like a database. So I could do something like create a file called db.json, and then I just add something here like, let's say location, and the location is not world, but web. Okay. And now I can use this db.json file and this location property here in my Nunchucks file. So I will say db.location, and this is what Eleventy then gives me. So you can see I can work with data and store data in JSON. And this is where we are going to marry now the two things, the two ideas that we had using Eleventy and using the custom elements manifest, because what we're doing is while we're generating the custom elements, or after generating the custom elements manifest file, we're copying it to Eleventy, and then we can work with the data in Eleventy. So let me just quickly do that. So based on my JavaScript, we create the custom elements file, and then we copy it into our data folder, and then we can use all the different information in here. And this is how it looks like. So I already prepared it. You don't want to watch me typing. I'm horrible at typing, but basically what I'm doing here is I'm in the Nunchucks file, and I'm just extracting the data from the JSON file. You can see it gives me the tag name, the name. It shows me an example. I have the different CSS properties, the label, the content, and so on. So everything is documented simply by commenting or documenting the code in the JavaScript file. And maybe one more last thing. If you remember, I told you that the original idea was that they wanted to make the developer experience in VS Code better. And that's actually something that you can also do. So you can take this custom elements file and teach VS Code how to work with your components. So I think I didn't show that, but the custom element name that I came up with for my component is WM disclosure. And if I use it now in an HTML file, you can see while I'm typing, it shows me the information. So it shows me the example that I created in my description. It shows me the description, the different events, methods, and so on. So the same information that I have in my Eleventy file and in my JSON file, I also now have in VS Code. So I can select that. I then have this expanded attribute. It shows me the description of the expanded property. Yeah, which is really cool, which makes the user experience so much better. And the nice thing is this works in HTML and also in CSS. So if in CSS I start typing, you can see I type -- and then it says, hey, I have this disclosure background property. It's the background color of the component. Do you want to use it? And I say yes. And then it tells me you can use blue or red because I've defined this as a default or possible value in my component itself. And then I just say blue, and then I can use it. So this is where I've documented that. Here you can see I've defined red and blue. And this is really, really great for us. It's a really nice workflow. It allows us to put the documentation where we want it, so directly in the JavaScript file, and we get something that's reusable. We can use it in our websites. We can use it in VS Code. And if there's any other tool or page, then it probably also can work with it because it's JSON, a universal format. And that's that. I think that was about 20 minutes. And I hope that you enjoyed my talk and that you found that interesting, and that maybe you were also considering using web components and maybe even custom elements manifests. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for the talk. This was super interesting. I already see a lot of people in Amaro saying they want this for their design system, and people find it very helpful. So thanks a lot. If there are any questions for Manuel, please put them in the chat or raise your hand. I, for one, have one question. How did you pick the prefix for your design system, WM?
That's a great question. I will just quickly share my screen again to answer that question. You should see our handbook again. And we have a font, a custom font called Wiener Melange. And WM is short for Wiener Melange. And Wiener means Viennese, and Melange is the typical coffee you will get in Vienna. So if you go to a coffee house, to one of our famous coffee house, you will get a horrible coffee, but a very famous and beloved coffee for some reason. And usually what you order is a Melange. And yeah, because it's something like very typical for Vienna, that's why the Type Foundry or the people who made the font decided the typeface decided to name it Wiener Melange. And you know, we love Vienna, we love our coffee house culture, so we use this name throughout, and this is why we also decided to use it as a prefix for our components.
Nice. That's a great prefix. In our community, we always try to figure out what's a great prefix, and there's some great inspiration. I have a couple of questions in the chat. So one of them is, do you have any experience with rendering server-side web components? Are there some things that you might use as a web component and some things that you wouldn't render as a web component?
There's another question by Florian, which is, did you ever have to combat Flash of Unstyled custom elements? And I'm going to answer both questions now. Yes, all the time, and but not so much. Eventually, at the beginning a lot, but later not so much, because the way we build our component library is that it's HTML first. So everything works without web components. So if you just write HTML, it will look fine. It will look nice. It will work. You can use it with PHP. You don't have to use web components. But if you want something that's dynamic, if you want, I don't know, asynchronous data loading, if you want, you know, like custom form elements or something like that, then you would have to use our web components. So the entire thing, except for some bugs that are still present, works without JavaScript as well. And sometimes we have a Flash of Unstyled content, but not so much, because like, for example, if you want to create a button, you don't just have a WM button component, but you wrap an actual button element in a WM button component. So you're just extending the base functionality and make it better, or, you know, add more stuff to it. This is why it's not that big of a deal for us, but yeah, in some components is. And the way we're dealing with it is that we, you know, sometimes we have some cheap tricks, like the component by default has opacity 0, and only when it's loaded it gets opacity 1, so it fades in. That's what we sometimes have, but it's not that big of a problem. And
so basically, you're using it as progressive progressive enhancement, and not just as the main functionality, not just a drop-in replacement for any React component.
Yes, the core idea is, and the core, the core belief, I would say, is progressive enhancement, and so you don't need the web component. We're just progressively enhancing them. But the React people said, yeah, but we want to write less code. We don't want to wrap every form element, you know. So sometimes we have both, especially for the web component, for the form elements. We have the traditional way. And then we have a dedicated single tag components where you don't have to add the input fields, just to make it easier for them.
That's a very clever approach. I think I'll take inspiration from that.
It's more work, but we just really believe in websites having to work without JavaScript, and we believe in shipping as little JavaScript as possible. So if you need it, like there is sometimes we have dynamic applications where it just makes sense for the user experience to add JavaScript just to make it easier for people to work with the specific application. But for the typical websites, you don't have to. You can just use HTML. And also, if something happens, like if for some reason the JavaScript doesn't load or the CSS doesn't load, it will still work fine.
Well, thank you so much. I think those were all the questions. Thanks a lot for your presentation. Be sure to follow Manuel on Mastodon and check out his blog on where's your blog at again?
My name without the which at the end, so it's matuzo.at. And if I can just use the time, I also have a website called html.dev, and on this website we publish articles about HTML in December as part of an advent calendar. And check it out. At least 24 different authors will write about HTML, and you can learn something if you want to. You just follow their website starting December 1st.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great pitch. I actually, one of your HTML blog posts was written by Rian, who also cross-posted it on the NL Design System blog. So if you want more content like that, you know where to find it now. So thanks for the rest of the day. We had 2 sessions, but we had some unfortunate illnesses. So we currently have now 1 session at 1 o'clock. That's about the Estonian design system. We previously had the Vera design system from Estonia in the Design Systems Week, but there's a new kid in town, the Teddy design system, with a great contribution model and also community components like NL Design System. So be sure to check it out at 1 o'clock. The 3 o'clock session about practical tests for assessing accessibility is to be determined. Maybe it will be postponed, maybe it will be cancelled. Stay tuned, follow us on Slack, and check out the NL Design System website for announcements. Thanks everybody for being here, and see you perhaps at 1 o'clock.
Thank you. Bye-bye.